Super duper facts. Was the Titanic switched with the Olympic? Let's explore some of the facts. 1. Titanic's insurance. Titanic's insurance was increased 5 days before the maiden voyage, which resulted in J.P. Morgan receiving $12.5 million for Titanic in insurance payouts from Lloyd's Maritime Insurance. Estimated at over $160 million today, more than they could ever have recovered if they had sold or scrapped her. The switch theory primarily rests on the sinking being a deliberate act to recover insurance money to rescue the White Star Line from bankruptcy. 2. Olympics crash with HMS Hawke. Another key component of the switches theory is to state that damage to HMS Hawke was much more substantial than what is thought. However, the Olympics damage from HMS Hawke did not exceed $125,000, and there is independent verification of this fact. Olympic was damaged badly enough to force the voyage to be cancelled. 2 major watertight compartments were flooded, her hull plating was gashed, the starboard propeller shafting damaged. 3. Olympics service record. How can a ship with a bent keel go on to serve 24 years without being fully repaired? The fact that the Olympic went on to serve 24 years with a damaged keel surely doesn't stand up. Could this ship actually be the newer Titanic, and the Olympic is the ship at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean? 4. Surviving crew members had to sign the Official Secrets Act. The surviving crew were detained overnight and forced to sign a pledge under the Official Secrets Act, promising to keep secret forever the actual events of the night of 14th and April 15th, 1912. The origin of this seems to have come from Paddy the Pig, also known as James Fenton, who late in life related the following. When the surviving crew got to port, they were all taken aside and met by 2 men, one in a high position in the company. The other man was in a very high position in the government. The government men read the crew the Official Secrets Act, explaining that if they told of the real reason for the sinking, or the rumors of an insurance scam, they would serve a minimum of 20 years in jail, and would never get a job when they got out. Paddy said that the guilt of keeping quiet all those years had taken a great toll on his health and the sanity of the surviving crew. 5. Noticeable similarities between the repair on the Olympic and the Titanic. Photographs taken of Titanic at Southampton shortly before her maiden voyage show a large area of discolored plating, as if it had been newly painted with paint. As if it had been newly painted with paint, or had been repaired. This section does not match the rest of the newer ship. It's also in the same location as Olympic's hull was damaged by HMS Hawke. 6. Lack of publicity for the Titanic. Did you know that the Titanic was never shown the enormous publicity that Olympic received the year before? By the time Titanic's maiden voyage came along, Olympic had been operating for a year. Titanic, although only just superseding her sister in size, was no longer big news, or so they would like you to believe. The claim is, the public and media were not as interested in her maiden voyage as that of her sister. Or, is this just the way they wanted it to be? They don't want too many eyes on the Titanic, if it's really the Olympic. After all, the Olympic had huge publicity. 7. No public inspection of the Titanic. While Olympic was open for inspection by the press and public, in both Belfast and Southampton, Titanic was not open for any inspection at all, except to the Board of Trade inspection. The fact that Titanic left Belfast, and then Southampton, in something of a hurry, with none of the fanfare of the Olympic. Just 1 day of sea trials, no stop in Liverpool, and no opening to the public, in either Belfast or Southampton, seems a little strange, don't you think? 8. The Titanic's sea trials were really short. Olympics trials in 1910 took 2 days, including several high-speed runs, but Titanic's trials only lasted for 1 day, with allegedly none over half speed. Is this because Olympics' patched-up hull could not take any long periods of high speed? If a switch did occur, then the sea trials at full speed would have certainly damaged Olympic even more. 9. Cancelled passengers. Interestingly, more than 50 first-class passengers cancelled at the last minute, many of them friends and business associates of J.P. Morgan and Morgan himself, who had money tied up in the White Star Line, also cancelled, claiming that he was ill. Morgan was found 2 days later by a reporter in good health at a French resort with his mistress. Morgan also had several valuable bronze statues removed from the ship, just 1 hour before she sailed. Florence Ismay, wife of J. Bruce Ismay, chairman of White Star, also cancelled, along with their children, and just like Morgan, she said she was ill, and instead went on a motoring holiday. 10. Olympic lifeboats on the Titanic. Titanic's lifeboats had small brass ID plaques screwed on them, and they all said RMS Olympic. After the sinking, 13 lifeboats were recovered, taken to New York, where the name Titanic was sanded off, and numbers removed to deter souvenir hunters. During this process, workers allegedly discovered the name Olympic carved into the gunwales, as the old name had been filled with putty and painted over. The boats were returned to England and reused. However, boat number 12, considered an unlucky 13th, presumably the 13th lifeboat, recovered by the Carpathia and so deemed unlucky, was not reused until after the First World War, when the boat was handed over to the Sea Scouts, as a thank you, some Sea Scouts having joined the Navy during the war and lost their lives. While the Sea Scouts were restoring the old lifeboat, they discovered the name Olympic cut into the gunwale. The lifeboat was wrecked in a collision with the Gosport ferry at Portsmouth, and taken by the Royal Navy to Haslar for demolition. For many years afterward, its port and starboard White Star insignia were used as prizes by a local Sea Scout group.